Welcome back to Schmattz Outdoors, everyone. It's that time of year. Let's figure out if I actually learned something. This is going to be part one of my lessons learned videos. This year we're going to go, today's video is going to be me kind of going through some of the generalized lessons I learned on my line, and then my general thoughts on the season. Part two of this video will be coming out next Saturday, and that will be my lessons learned going specifically through each species and any lessons or comments I have related to each species. So stay tuned for that video next week. Again, this video is going to be kind of just my general thoughts on the season and some general lessons I learned overall. So we're going to hop right into it. I have some notes on my computer. Every year as I'm editing videos, actually even every day as I get back to my house and get done skinning and whatever, I download all my footage to my computer. And there's things that just hit me that day that I noticed, like, man, I need to make a note of that because it's something that I haven't noticed before. You know, it's something I learned, something I've seen, something like that. And so this is kind of a running document that I keep basically from the first day I set traps out until today when I'm talking to you guys. So the first one I have here, is very important for me this year. Be flexible with your plan. I like to have a plan going into the season, you know, kind of. I generally do a preseason video for you guys, so I usually try to go into the season with a plan that, you know, I want to try and catch some more coyotes this year. I want to focus on mink. I want to catch more muskrats. I want to do this or that or the other thing. So I have generally an idea of what goals I have for the season kind of dictate how I set my lineup, right? So if I want to catch more coyotes, well, then that means I probably have to set a few less muskrat sets or water sets, or, you know, I need more land sets, whatever. Well, this year I run into a kind of an oddity, and I you know, all I have to say is just check your local regulations and make sure you know the laws before the season. And with that, in Minnesota here where I trap, in my area in the southern zone, our land animal season opens one weekend, and almost every year the water season opens the following weekend. And that was my plan going into the season, you know, the same as normal. So I usually go, I start setting on a Thursday, so I don't set opening day of the land season because generally my animals aren't terribly prime yet by then. So even just another week. So I usually, instead of setting Saturday opening day, I will set Thursday, check Friday and set some more sets. And then generally Saturday, this would be the start of water season. So in my preseason video, I mentioned that I wanted to hit water animals hard, and specifically muskrats. There was a ton of muskrat sign out. And if you guys watch my Out on the Line series, you realize that I set 15 sloughs and I caught over 300 muskrats. So there's probably 30 other sloughs that I didn't put sets in that I had planned on or could put sets in to try and catch more muskrats. Well, what ended up happening this season is they actually they adjusted the seasons a little bit this year. So land animals open one weekend, and instead of water opening the next weekend, it actually was the following weekend. So I already had planned my entire vacation and everything. I mean, way back into July, usually I put in my vacation, which actually, as I'm filming this, I already have my vacation put in for this fall. Well, come to find out, like a couple weeks before the season started, I was perusing through the law book again. Minnesota's nice enough. Generally, they go through and they put new regulations or changes to the regulations at the front of the book, and then throughout the book, they will note wherever they are in there as well. Well, I actually was looking because Minnesota opened a bobcat and fisher season for the area that I live in, or that I trap in here. So I was actually looking just to see kind of what the regulations were, when the seasons were, whatever. Well, here I found or noticed that they adjusted the start dates to be a 2-week difference instead of a 1-week difference. Well, as you guys seen on my line, I had to actually do quite a bit of pivoting, because instead of setting out, I was only going to set out somewhat of a meager land line. I'm always going to have some land sets out, because even if I'm water trimming, I'm still driving by all these spots to begin with. So if I'm stopping at a zoo to put some muskrat sets, mink sets, beaver sets, whatever, you know, across the street I can put a raccoon set. I'm going to put the raccoon set there too. So my plan was to just start off with a very meager land line for those first couple days, just get some of the ones that I can check easily or will be driving by as I'm running the water line. Well, as you guys noticed, I ended up putting out a very healthy land line, because I run the land line for 9 days, 9 checks before the water season started. Well, because of that, that ended up reducing the amount of water line I ended up getting out. Did it hurt my catch of water animals? Yes, probably. I'm speculating here, but I think there's a very good chance I could have caught 500 muskrats had the seasons actually fell the way they normally do and the way I actually expected them going in. So that was a very long explanation to just be flexible with your plans. So as you're going into the season, weather, season, you know, actual laws, everything else can change, you know, from year to year, and you kind of need to be able to pivot on how you set up your line and everything else because of those changes. So I'm very glad I ended up looking at the law book, because there actually was a chance that I would have actually set water sets out a week earlier than the season started, because I made an assumption that they would fall the same way they normally do, just 2 weekends in a row, and that wasn't the case this year. So it did hurt my water line a little bit. Again, I was hoping to get out. I figured I had like maybe half or maybe 2/3 of like the water line that I, you know, wanted to get out, and I could have probably done more yet than what I was even planning. So, all right, next thing that I got on my list here, and I feel like I did better this year for you guys, and I actually tried to show you as much of them as I can, but my note is just to get better at taking pictures on the line. I generally try to take pictures. Like, I take a picture of almost every coyote I catch. I try to anyway. I'll take some pictures of some raccoons or some different interesting catches that I make on my line. But I don't know, I kind of get in a hurry like everybody probably does. You know, it's time management on the line. I get in a hurry. It's like I get there, I film a little for you guys, I shut my GoPro off, and then I take care of the animal, remake the set, and then I'm leaving. I'm like, oh, I didn't take any pictures. So I tried to do a little better taking pictures this year, and I also tried to show them to you. So at the end of every day's video, if you guys watch through the entire video, at the end you can see the pictures that I took that day. There's maybe 1 or 2 that I didn't throw in there. If I took, sometimes it, like, if an animal is moving around, sometimes it takes 4 or 5 pictures to get a decent one. Well, I'm not going to show you the picture of an animal's butt because he turned right as I took my picture. So, but I did try to post more pictures than I've took more pictures than I ever have, and I tried to post them for you guys to see at the end of each video. And then at the end of the compilation videos that you guys just got done watching, there should have been a bunch of the pictures. I had more pictures than I posted there for the fox or for the coyote and the raccoon and the skunk ones. Maybe a little less so on the skunk. On the coyote and the raccoon videos, I posted just 1 picture of each of the catches in the order that I caught them. You know, so I didn't want to put like 5 pictures and you guys think I had 5 different coyotes caught. So I put 1 picture of each catch. I tried to find what I thought was the best one of each one. But yeah, so there is all those pictures at the end of the compilation videos as well. So if you didn't watch to the end of those videos, you can go back and look, and you can kind of see catch by catch the pictures that I took of each one. I still feel like I can do better for you guys on that. I also think I could get better at taking non-catch video for you guys. I know my videos get long. I don't purposely make them long, but I purposely try to keep in the set locations and the reason why my set is there, my thoughts on why I caught the animal in that particular location, because I'm trying to educate you guys. I'm trying to gear my channel towards educational videos. So with that, I want to show you all that information, because when you're looking for spots, I hope that type of information helps you kind of find the spot on the spot. You know, on a fence line, I could put my set anywhere I want, but if there's a little bush or something like that, that's where I'm putting my set. And it's because of the bush there will focus the animals around that. I also I know where my set is, everything else. So I still feel like I do see things, like I have dug up traps. I probably should show you that, or dug up coyote traps. Let's stock that particular. I probably should show you some of the situations I run into when I'm doing maintenance days on my line. So yeah, I think that's all I really have for that. Is I want to take more video of that. I just have a hard time fitting it into my videos for you guys. It's on my list probably every year that I should do better at that. Taking non-catch video to show you guys other interesting things I notice on the line. I did show you the one cool salamander I found. I still have not figured out what kind of salamander that is. So if you guys go back and watch that video and you happen to know, please drop it in the comments, because I'd still like to know what kind of salamander that was. So I did mention maintenance days. Huge thing for me. I did a maintenance day, I think right before I set out my water line, and I don't think I ended up doing a maintenance day the whole rest of the season. So about 7 or 8 days in, I ended up doing a maintenance day, which is probably longer than I should, but you know, that I should gap. Ideally, I'd like to do it, say, every 3 or 4 days, because every trap that's unset for even a day, that's one less opportunity I have to make a catch. So doing maintenance on your line is very important. If I notice a trap has been disturbed, set off, anything like that, if I see it and notice it, I remake it every time. No questions asked. Whether I feel like doing it or not, if I see my coyote trap set off, I'm driving out there and I'm remaking it. If a golf ball is knocked off my dog proof, I'm stopping and I'm putting the golf ball back on, because obviously a mouse or something else or a different animal knocked the ball off, but now the mice can steal all my bait. If there's no bait in my trap, I'm not catching anything. So that has been something I've really focused on, especially the dog proofs. Some years I get real lazy. It's like, oh, I'll stop tomorrow and put that golf ball back on. The last couple of seasons, it's been, no, I stop every time and put that golf ball back on. Yeah, so I didn't end up doing maintenance for basically the last 18 days, roughly. I don't know the exact number, but I mean, 2.5 weeks, I didn't end up doing any maintenance on my line. You know, like specifically driving out to every coyote set just to check them. Kind of intermittently, I was doing a sets here or there. If I had a catch, you know, I would, in the second set there, I would, you know, dab a little extra urine on it or a little extra lure on there when I was already out there, you know, because I had a catch or something like that, or one of my sets I noticed was set off. So I was doing maintenance when I was close to the sets, but actually doing a full maintenance and driving out and checking every trap, I went like over half of my season without ever doing a maintenance check. There's a couple reasons for that. One, like, I mean, if you guys watch my videos, I was getting home after the sunset, so it's hard to take even an extra 10 or 15 minutes to do maintenance on a couple, you know, even if it's just 1 or 2 coyote sets set off. Well, that basically, now I'm getting home in the dark, and I do not want to be checking traps in the dark. So I kind of give up the chance of there being some set off traps with me actually be able to check everything when it's light out. I also was sick in there for most of a week, most of 7 days. So that's kind of my next thing on here. So yeah, I feel like my videos turned out better than I thought they were going to as I was editing through the videos. So roughly check 15 to about check 20, someplace in there, with just rough numbers. I don't know. You can watch, if you watch the Out on the Line videos, I mean, I literally had it coming out of both ends for several days in a row, and then it was very minimalistic after that of me actually, there was only a few things that I actually even felt like I wanted to eat because I couldn't keep it down. So I was just plain exhausted. I mean, I didn't feel good. I wasn't eating. I mean, yeah, even drinking water didn't feel, or didn't give me, I was nauseous just drinking water. So I got very wore down very quickly this season. And if you watch my Out on the Line videos, that is a very big contributing factor to the reason why I pulled my line when I did. As you guys may know, I actually had more vacation time off. I could have trapped almost two full weeks more than what I ended up doing. I was very happy with the catches. Had I had a poor season on catches, I probably might even pull my line earlier, to be honest with you, because the only thing that kind of kept me going was the fact that I was still making quality catches every day. You know, it really sucked when I wasn't feeling well and I get home and I have to do 4 hours worth of skinning after I got home, when all I wanted to do was go and curl up on the couch and die, you know. So I feel like I put out a very good videos for you guys. I feel like I didn't actually complain about it as much as I thought I might have on my videos when I was going through and starting to edit some of them. But yeah, I was down for the count for a while. And then, like I said, I slowly, like, day 3 and 4 were kind of bad. Day 5, I felt a little better. By days 6 and 7, you know, I could at least eat breakfast in the morning and keep it down, and, you know, the entire time through my line. There was several days, some of the first couple days I was sick. I mean, I was standing on the side of the road a couple times, literally dry heaving, standing there next to my truck, you know, just in between sets, you know, just the bumps of the road or driving across field just shook me up. And I mean, it wasn't great. So yeah, and I don't know, in Minnesota here we have 24-hour check laws, or everyday check laws, however you want to look at it. I got to check between, I think it's like 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. every day. You got to check them. So whether you're feeling good or not, and whether it's rain, snow, sleet, the whole works, you got to check everyone every day. So I was still out there doing the best I could. Was I maintaining my line as well as I should have been? No. And that includes the water line as well, even when I was water trapping. So the next thing I had on my thing is just kind of a general note, just trying to get sets into fresh areas. So if you guys watch my line or videos year over year, you kind of realize my sets are kind of in the same spots all the time. What I run into this year, and I run into every year, is whatever I get set those first 2 days of setting out the landline, you know, I set one day, the second day I check whatever I got set and try to set as many as I can. Generally that starts the water season, you know, and then it's hard to find time or make the time to keep adding to the landline, in particular when I'm water trapping and everything else. This year was no exception from that. I got out a pretty decent line the first day, and I run through it. I had a heck of a check. I ended up adding a few sets for about 2 or 3 days in a row, only because of the way the water season fell. So I was able to add a few sets. I only ended up with 2 sets on my land. Normally I have 10 or more, and I never did catch a coyote off our land, and I know they're here because I've heard them howling this summer. So that's something that just shouldn't happen. My land should be the first ones to get sets, and I understand that. But yeah, so it's very tough for me to keep adding to the line when I'm making more catches than I want to handle every day anyway. So that's something that I fight with every season, is finding the energy to know that if I add to my line, well, that's just that many more animals I may have to deal with. After 2 or 3 days into my season, I'm already exhausted. I'm not sleeping well. I'm getting up before the sun rises, and I'm skinning until well after the sun sets every day. So it gets to be a grueling season. Like this year was 25 checks. And like I said, I was just plain shot. With being sick, I didn't mention it, but in the 25 days, 25 checks at one set day, so 26 days was trapping. I lost about 25 pounds in those 25 or 26 days. So yeah, that takes a lot out of a guy going into the season. So all right, so we're gonna get a little more upbeat here. Let's see. So every year I talk about on my line the local Grand Slam. I'm not going to go into in depth again. Essentially all that is every animal area that I'm legal to catch. The only thing this year, they made it legal for me to catch fisher and legal to catch bobcats. The fisher season is right around Christmas time, and it's only a week long. Well, I am completely done trapping by then, so I don't consider that part of my Grand Slam, because again, this year was the first year it was actually legal for me to keep one if I would have caught one. And then bobcats were legal in my area. like 10 years ago, I heard one guy had a picture of a bobcat and he had like one picture of them in my area. Otherwise, there's no cats in my area. So them making a season here for this part of the state doesn't change anything, so it's not included in my Grand Slam. So very quickly, my Grand Slam is coyotes, fox, badgers, raccoons, skunks, muskrat, beaver, mink, otter, weasel. And the fisher is a bonus. If I happen to catch one while I'm trapping, I would still have to let him go because it's out of season, because the season again starts a month after I quit. So this year I was able to catch the local Grand Slam again, and it all because of one kind of trail set that I had set for otter. So that set caught me a mink, and it caught me the otter for this season in order for me to get the Grand Slam. Usually the otter is the one I don't get, and I did catch the smallest otter I've ever caught, but I did catch one, so I filled the Grand Slam this year. And part of the reason why I bring that up is, and I have a lot of conversations with different people, and I even mentioned at the beginning of this video, me not setting out the muskrat line that I wanted to. I was actually gonna kind of go away from running a full multi-species line this year and focus and go hard after muskrats, because I'd like my personal best to be 500 plus. 1,000 even would be awesome. I don't think, I mean, there's a chance you could hit that this season. The way the weather was, a guy might have had a shot at it, but it'd be if I want to focus, I wanted to focus on muskrats to get a number that probably be a number I'd never catch again. Well, that didn't work out the way the seasons fell. So but I do like showing you guys that I can run and catch what I think are fairly respectable numbers on every species while running a full mixed line. I mean, catching 50 raccoons in 25 days, 52 I caught in 25 days. Catching 38 coyotes, a coyote and a half a day average. Catching 316 muskrats, well, 300 roughly in 9 checks. You know, catching 30 plus skunks, catching beavers, you know, all these species. If I focused on each individual one, yes, I could put up probably bigger numbers than I ever have. You know, 52 raccoons might be tough for me to hit again, because again, some people have, you know, large quantities of raccoons to trap. In my area, I mean, I'm showing you some of the focused areas around fence lines, groves of trees, whatever. There's miles and miles of wide open farmland in between those spots that there may be a raccoon there, but not sure where you would even put a set to catch him, right? So there are some species like 52 raccoons. I'll even if I focus just on raccoons, I probably have a hard time hitting that number again. The only thing like there, I could set around sloughs, and you probably catch some more young of the year and females around sloughs. I generally don't do that. So with that said, so some of the kind of interesting things that I keep track of every year. So I had a variety of bests, daily best, the most animals caught in a specific day, and season best. So let's go over those. So starting off with 3 weasels in 1 check. The most I've ever caught in 1 check was 1. So, and catching 3 in 1 day, I was just shocked. But again, I had more weasel boxes out than I ever have. I have a dozen of them now, and I had all dozen of them out for a few days there. The day I caught 3 weasels, I had all 12 of them out. So 25% check rate on weasel boxes is just stupid in my opinion. Anybody who does any amount of like focused weasel trapping, if you could average 25% on a check, they would take that any day. Little thunder going on. So we're gonna keep going through this. Hopefully I can finish before it rains on me. 54 muskrats in a day. I skinned 53 of them, but I had one ate by a mink that day. I think that was check 2 or 3 on the water line. And I went 54, like 46, 41. But one thing I didn't do is like the day I caught 54, I relured sets as I was, if I'm there taking ammo out of the trap, I'll add a little fresh lure to the sets. After the second day when I had 46, I quit baiting or luring anything. So from there to the end of the season, I was making around 30-ish catches a day, you know, or tapered down every day, but like averaging almost 30 a day with no lure or fresh lure on any of my sets. because I wasn't feeling well, and I just didn't want to. It would have been tough for me to handle 50 muskrats more than a couple days in a row. So I actually quit luring my sets in order to actually slow down my catch just a little bit. So 54 in one day. I'm flabbergasted. That was over 50% catch rate on muskrat sets. I had like 92 or 3 out and caught 54 muskrats that day. So if a guy would have got my full water line out, I think, honestly, it may sound stupid to say, but there's a chance a guy could have caught close to 100 muskrats in one check had I gotten my water line out like I was expecting to going into the season. All right, so season bests. So 3 weasels one day, turned into 6 weasels for the season. My previous best in one season was 4 weasels. And I also caught the biggest one I ever caught by a long ways. He was 2 full inches bigger than any other weasel I've ever caught. Was still a short tail weasel. That's all I have in my area, but it is what it is. I'm excited to catch 6. I was a little disappointed that it was the 15th of November when I put out weasel boxes, so I was surprised that I had 2 like graybacks or that had a little bit of brown on their back still. So it's just something to note in my head that like probably that date is probably the earliest I should consider, and it'd probably be better even waiting, you know, a few days after that before I put out boxes. And had I not already had planned pulling my line when I did, I would have waited to put them out a little bit later. If I had run the extra 2 weeks, I would have waited until roughly when I pulled my line to put boxes out and then run them those last 2 weeks. So 52 raccoons in one season. I tied, my old best was 42. I had 42 raccoons caught in 13 checks this year. So that just flabbergasts me. And I mentioned it a bunch of times in my videos. The one thing that I just can't get over is I could not catch a raccoon to save my life the season before. I caught 9 raccoons in like, I think it was like 28 checks or something. It might have been 30 checks the season before, and I only caught 9 raccoons. So in order to go from 9 raccoons in 30 checks to 42 raccoons in 13 checks, just is like, where were they all? The one thing that we had is we had a very light winter here, the winter in between there, and we had a very light winter this past winter. So I don't know if that means that the raccoon survival rate is just that much higher and there's going to be that many more around again this year. I would have to think that the numbers might be down after me putting that big a hurt on them, but we'll see. I ended up with 316 muskrats caught. I think I was just shy of 300 in the 9 checks I run the main water line. And again, the only reason why I pulled it is I just was not feeling well, and it was literally getting to the point that I was hoping, as I pulled up to every set, not just water sets, but land sets too, my mind was like, I really hope there's nothing in this set. I hope my set isn't set off, because I did not feel good enough to even get out of my truck to want to take care of an animal. Well, that is the complete wrong mindset when you're trapping. When I start the season, I go into the season, I hope there's an animal in every trap I put out, because there's a reason it's there. There's a reason I set it there. I want it to catch critters. But when your mind is going the other way, they're like, oh, I hope there's nothing here. That is not the place you want to be. So that's part of the reason why I pulled my water line when I did. The weather was good enough. I could have run my full water line, or the water line I had out, or even added to it or moved it all the way till when I pulled my line on the 25th check, because the sloughs were all still open then. They froze up 2 days later, which is, I'll get into that in a second here. So, and then the last one, it wasn't a season best, but I thought I'd mention it. So I ended up with 38 coyotes this season. My previous best, or my season best, all-time best, is 42 coyotes. Had I trapped even just a couple more days, I was catching around 2 a day average for the last, I think, 4 checks or something, or 5 checks going before I pulled my line. And then I pulled my line when I did, because there was a big storm coming through. So we ended up basically with, like, the next day after I pulled my line, it rained all day, and then it froze, and then we got snow. So if I had to run my line through those 3 days, or even the 4th day when it started to get nice again, I'm pretty sure I'd have had the 4 more coyotes caught. They would have moved right before the storm, or even as the storm was, you know, starting raining. I think they would have moved as it got cold, and, you know, once it quit raining and kind of switched to snow, I think they'd have been moving. And then after that storm, they definitely would have been moving, because they'd have been hungry after 3 days of not moving around. So the 42 was well within sight. Coyote day average for 25 checks, I still will take that every season. There's a lot of seasons I have a hard time even getting to 1 coyote check. So to average a coyote and a half and end up 4 short of my season best, I still think is something to be proud of. So we're gonna go through some of the rest of these fairly quickly. So I kind of harp on getting coyote sets out as I'm setting my line. You know, I keep saying like, oh, I want to add more, add more. The reason why I want to add more is they're an all-purpose set. So I can catch pretty much every land animal in a coyote set, and I do. I catch coyotes, I catch fox, I catch badgers as incidentals, I catch raccoons as incidentals, and I catch skunks as incidentals. Well, this year the skunks paid off more than any other species. If you guys pay any attention to the auction, I actually had my skunks on the June auction, and I come out very well. I'm very happy. But with that said, like I said, I keep harping on I want to get more coyote sets out. Well, that's the reason why, because they're an all-purpose set, and they also they weather in a little bit. I make catches first day, and I show those to you guys. But after, to me, like 2 or 3 days after you even do maintenance on them, they almost get better. You know, the scents kind of just dissipate, or I don't really have a great explanation, but your sets get better after they marinate a little bit. So getting them out lets them marinate and makes them, you know, have a longer time period where they're actually working to peak performance. So, and then I generally catch the biggest raccoons and the biggest skunks out of coyote sets, because they're not around the farm places or anything. You know, the ones out along a fence line or something, the big boars are running those way more than the young of the year and way more than the females are. So that I'm catching the bigger, probably better quality animals in my coyote sets, as opposed to trapping around farm places and other things. So, and especially raccoons around sloughs. I will catch young of the year raccoons, and I will catch sucked out females around the sloughs. So I try not to set sets right next to sloughs for raccoons. So something I learned, and I already know this, but it's just something that got reiterated this year, is make sure your sets are out of the way of the farmers and the deer hunters. The very first set that I checked got run over by a tractor, and it actually completely ruined that trap. It broke the frame, it broke the springs, it bent it all over the place. It actually bent one of the cast jaws. I'm not sure how it didn't break the jaw, but it actually bent the jaw. So there's actually literally a few parts on there that I can maybe steal to fix other traps down the road, but it is completely ruined. So I've had a few run over the years, and I've been able to straighten them out a little bit. That one is by far the worst I've ever had. And I knew that when I put that set there, and I don't know. I guess my lesson right there is just, if there's any chance that trap is going to get run over, or my set is going to run over, I need to move it somewhere else. Yes, it may not be the spot on the spot that I want to be on, but I can't make a catch if my traps run over. So, and you know, right there, an MB 550, I don't know, they're 20-ish bucks a piece right now. So right there's $20 shot down the drain, plus every animal I could catch for every, you know, next 50 years down the road that I would have caught in that one trap. So it's a costly endeavor when you have a trap damaged or ruined. So check the J hooks on your trap. So I don't weld my J hooks. I may consider it down the road here, but right now it's not in my plan to weld my J hooks. I do not like welding on anything. Welding, you're going to lose your temper, and you actually can weaken your J hooks and stuff by it. The only thing, like on a J hook, when it's bent around, you just tack welding the end shut. You're only putting a little heat there. Your trap's still pulling on this part of it, so you're not really weakening it right where your trap's pulling it. The reason why I mentioned this is when I was pulling my line, I actually lost a coyote trap. I don't think I even mentioned it on the videos, and I have debated whether I should tell you this or not, but I lost the coyote trap, and the J hook that basically hooks onto the D ring on the bottom of your MB550 opened up, and it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't even open enough, far enough to get off of the D hook, or yeah, off of the D ring on the bottom of your trap. So it was open like, I don't know, 100,000ths maybe, but the D ring's bigger diameter than that. So whatever that was, something must have got caught and allowed that animal to pull, and it, my theory is it was open a little, it allowed it to spring open enough to get the D-ring out, and then it snapped back shut. Because there's no way that the gap that it had on there, and I meant to show you guys, but I didn't grab it before I started filming. So I ended up losing just the trap. I had all the chain, the J-hooks, the swivels, my shock spring was all still staked down, the trap was gone. Well, that's one right there that I should have done maintenance on. I don't know how long it was gone. The day I went to pull my trap, I literally am looking around. It took me a bit to even find my set because there wasn't even much of a catch circle there. So yeah, I'm ashamed to say it. I lost a trap with most likely on an animal. So I do go over the full chain on all my coyote traps every year. I make sure I clean all the dirt off of them, and I make sure I check all the chain links. I make sure the swivels are all still swiveling right. So I don't know if I missed a J hook that was open a little bit and didn't notice it. Because if I notice it, I crimp them tight every time again. I've noticed it more like on my Z traps than I ever have on my coyote traps. So something I need to pay attention. Again, right there is a $20 trap gone, plus an animal that obviously something was caught in there to take my trap with them. So in the area was at, I know people are going to mention theft. This is, nobody would have ever found that set unless you literally are just some random guy just walking around randomly, if that makes sense. And there was no footprints that I could see. I couldn't even see any actual animal prints there. But yeah, it was on a chunk of private land. It was a half a mile or more from any road. So theft, I don't think, is even in consideration here. It just plain the J hook opened up and my trap got pulled off. One thing that is a nice lesson for me to learn here, I had the abandoned barn. It was one of the first traps that I check, you know, maybe the 10th or 15th trap that I check every day. There's abandoned barn, the bottom of the barn, they took all the siding off of it. And I mentioned in my videos, I think I ended up catching a raccoon and a skunk there this year. I put my traps there every year, but this year there was like no sign there, like no trails through the grass going up into the building like there normally is. But I put my sets there because I know that is a quality spot, because I make catches there almost every season. And when I do make catches, usually it's multiple catches every season there. So putting sets that you know are in areas that you have caught animals in the past, to me is an important lesson. If I was a new trapper and I pulled up to that spot and I walked around that barn and I seen the sign that was there this year, which was almost nothing, I wouldn't even put my sets there as a new trapper. Or as an experienced trapper, if I walk around an abandoned yard, if I pick up some new area to trap and I walked around that barn and seen the sign I did, I would not have even put sets there. So my lesson is just, if you know that it's a good spot and you've made catches there in the past, even if the sign doesn't necessarily show you the animals are there, it doesn't mean you can't make catches there. So, and I had several spots that were like that this year. So one was back behind that feedlot. There was almost no coyote footprints in any of the dirt, mud, anything around that place. And I think I caught one raccoon there for sure. And I think I ended up with 5 coyotes back there, or 4 for sure, might have been 5. Might even been more than that even. But there wasn't much sign back there like there has been in other years. Some years, I mean, it's literally like the whole area is trampled down with coyote footprints in the mud. And there was no footprints this year. So as you guys seen in my videos, I actually put one set north of the feedlot, one set south of the feedlot, and then like I made a couple catches on the north one, and then I ended up adding a second set up there, and then I made, I think, 2 more catches up there, one in the new set and one in the original set. I didn't put the second set on the north to begin with because I just didn't think the sign was there. So it's a good spot. I know it's a good spot. So with that, I guess my thing to you guys is just, if you know it's a good spot and you may catch us there in the past, put your sets there and let the animals tell you whether they're actually there or not, because the sign may not actually show it. There's a lot of things change how they move around, you know, their territory, buildings, everything else from one year to the next. So we're kind of getting down to the end of it here. I was listening to the Meat Eater podcast a while ago, and Steve Rinella was talking about trapping, which they don't do enough of, in my opinion. He made the comment, and I'm quoting here, "Act like every trap is your only trap." And I don't know, even as I just said that right now, it kind of hits me differently. And the whole maintenance conversation that we just had, all that stuff, like, it kind of hits home that when I'm running, you know, water trap, I had 225 sets out at the peak this year. I was running about 100 water or 100 land sets, and I got up close to 125 water sets, or, you know, a little over 100 of each, let's put it that way. But act like every trap is your only trap hits me differently, only because I think I get into a routine. It's like you just kind of want to just make it through the line, get home, get your animal skinned, and be able to relax again. But actually taking the time to focus on making sure every trap is working every day to the best of its ability, because if it's not working to the best ability, you might be missing catches or educating animals that, you know, you don't want to be educating them. So yeah, I can't really explain to you guys that well why that hits me, but it does. Like, just if you're checking your traps and you see something's off a little bit and you're like, oh, I'll fix it tomorrow. Well, no, stop and fix it today, because tonight might be the day that 80-pound beaver swims through your set, you know, or that albino coyote comes through, or raccoon, or whatever, and you might miss them because you didn't take the extra 30 seconds it takes to make sure your set was working the best it could. So yeah, I guess that's all I got. That's an interesting one for me. I probably could talk on for an hour on that, but that when he said that, I actually paused the podcast and just sat there. It just like put me in shock almost when I heard that, because it's, yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I sort of wish I had video of the next one, but I don't. If you guys watch my things, you know I caught in a 330 this year, so I joined the 330 club that I was hoping I would never happen. Years ago, I had a 330 go off, caught a muskrat coming out of a beaver house while I was in the run, pushing in my H-stand, and the 330 caught like this, basically where my rubber boot met the neoprene wader, and actually caught the front of my waders. And I had a live muskrat. I was able to get him dispatched before he bit me, but I ended up having to go, I don't know, I had to pull my stake and go a little ways to actually get my setters to get it off of my waders. And that was a close call. It was like, you know, yeah, I am terrible at using my safeties. I have 2 safety catches. It seems like I very rarely ever use them. And I know that's a terrible thing to say. Do as I say, not as I do, young trappers. Use your safeties on the top of even 220s as you're trying to push in your H-stand or get your trap on an H-stand. It doesn't take that much extra time, but man, it could save you. So this year I got caught in a 330. It caught this hand. It hit me up here higher on my thumb, on the back and the front. And then it actually slid down to my knuckle here. I got a very big knuckle there, and it caught my knuckle, and it had these 3 fingers caught up here between my, you know, your hand and the first knuckle on your finger. It had all 3 of these fingers caught. It didn't catch my pinky, only because I think my pinky's small enough, and it just, these fingers held it open enough. So I had 3 fingers in my thumb and the top of a 330. That was a very dangerous situation. I got very lucky that it did not break my hand or my fingers. I mean, I had a little bit of bruising in my thumb, and my thumb was sore in the son of a gun for 2 or 3 days, even trying to skin, like trying to grab and pull, like my thumb hurt. It bruised a little here and on the backside of my hand. That's why I know that it hit me up here and it pulled down that far, because you could see like the defined line where the jaw hit me. I got lucky that my thumb is bigger than my fingers thickness wise, and I was able to slide my fingers over to the corner of the trap where there's a little bit of an opening, and I got one finger out at a time until I got one hand free. Then I was able to use the setters in the ground, you know, or my hand in the ground to use my setters to get the safety hook on one side, and then I got the trap turned around and got the spring released enough I could get my thumb pulled out on the second side. But like I said, that ended up being a very dangerous situation because a lot of things could have went bad very quickly there. My lesson there is I had dyed that trap this season, this last summer. I dyed all my water traps. What I didn't do on that set, and I think a part of the reason why I had some of my foothold traps were set off without catches in them, I did not go back and like clean up the dog area. And like on that 330, the notch, usually I'll go back and I'll clean the dye out of that notch, and I'll make sure I clean up the jaw a little bit where my dog is catching the jaw on the conibears. I did not do that to the 330s before I put them out. So I had that trap the day before, went off in my hands when I was hanging onto the springs trying to get it onto my H-stand. It went off in my face, splashed mud in my mouth, which just shouldn't happen. You know, keep your mouth shut, you know. So it went off, I reset it, you know, stuff happens. I didn't even think about it, put it back on. The next day I had that muskrat caught in there, trap went off in my hand, caught me. When I went to set, after I got out of it and kind of calmed down a little bit, reset the trap and was doing the same thing, putting it on the H-stand, and it went off again in my hand, and I ended up swapping the trap out with a different one. I have that trap set aside in my shed down here, and I will be making, I'll do some tuning to that trap before it gets set out again, let's put it that way. And I legitimately think it's just cleaning, I use speed dip, so it's cleaning the speed dip off of the notch of the dog and cleaning a little bit off of the jaw of the trap where the dog is hooking on there, and just make sure that like I can set it and jiggle my trap around without it firing, but as soon as I move the trigger a little bit, that it goes off. So that's how I want a rigid trigger, but if it moves just a little, the trap's going off. So that's how I tune all my conibears. So, but yeah, I got very lucky. I didn't break anything, and I was lucky that I was able to get myself out of that trap, because otherwise driving a stick shift pickup with both your hands caught in a 330, and then I've even went through my head in the middle of the day, because I mean, that was right in the middle of the day. I don't even know whose farm place I had to went to around there to try and get help to get out of it. You'd stop at some random farm place, you walk up to the door with a trap on your hand and knock on the door. You know, if there's only a woman home there, they're probably not going to open the door for you, to be quite honest for you, or be honest to you. So yeah, I thought about that quite a bit, of what I would have had to do had I not been able to get it off. One, trying to get the stake pulled, that because I always stake my 330s down, and then getting that back to my truck. In my truck, I probably, if I could have got my truck into like second or third gear, I'd have probably left that and just drove slow until I could get to somebody's yard to hopefully they could help me get out of it. So be aware of your surroundings. I probably was being a little lackadaisical. I still don't even know when it went off or how it caught me like that, like, because I generally don't grab the jaws, I'm grabbing the spring. So I'm still confused on how it ended up catching me anyway, but because it happens that quick, and that's all it takes to put you in a bad situation. So all right, two more quick things. Running out of freezer space. So this was another big factor into me pulling my entire line. My brother thankfully was nice enough to bring me a deep freeze that he wasn't using. So at deer season, he brought me out a little deep freeze. It took me 6 days and I had his little chest freezer full of fur. So had he not done that, I would have probably had to pull my line earlier, pull part of the line for sure, because I was making so many catches that my normal freezers that I put fur in were already full. I actually have a fridge in my garage in here. I had that plugged in and running just so I could use the freezer or the fridge. So I had 2 freezers full, another chest freezer, our freezer we put food in, like our actual food freezer. I had some fur in that. I probably had a third of that freezer full. And then I had the top of this fridge full of fur. I literally had bricks on top of the freezer door lids, or on the lids to hold the freezer door shut. I had that much fur in there. So I would have ended up pulling part of my line anyway because I could not keep up that pace, and I'd have had to start putting fur up the day I caught it. That's all fine until you catch, you know, 4, 5, 6 coyotes in one check and some raccoons or whatever. You know, takes me half an hour or so to flesh a coyote. So not only am I skinning them, but then it's taking me an extra half an hour to flesh them and put them up, and then you got to turn them and do all that the next day. So it just would not have worked out well. So yeah, I'm thankful for my brother for helping out and bringing that freezer for me. But yeah, one thing I also did happen, so I have in the basement, I have an upright freezer, is my main freezer I've always stored my fur in. I actually had wires between the shelves so I could kind of hold more fur into each shelf, and all the cooling is in the shelves of that freezer. I actually had some fur spoil that was in the door of the freezer because I think the rest of it was insulating the heating or the cooling in the shelves so well that like some of the stuff in the bottom of my bottom of the door and some of the, I had several coyotes were damaged. One I threw out. I had an otter was damaged because the hair ended up slipping, and a fox that was damaged. The hair ended up slipping on them to the point that 2 of the coyotes I ended up sending, and the otter I sent to the auction house, they all got graded damage, which I knew they were going to. The fox I ended up throwing out because I ended up trying to get him straightened out because he got freezer burnt a little bit, and then the hair was slipping. They just damaged. They would have thrown him out. They wouldn't even sold it. So that's a lesson I learned, is just I can't fill that freezer that full. The normal chest freezers, you know, I was putting fur in there every day and putting a lot of it, which probably ain't a great thing because you should kind of layer it all out in one layer so it could freeze. I just didn't have the room to put it anywhere else. So I was laying, you know, several animals on top of each other, and I got very lucky that it all froze nice and solid, and it all, when I took it all out, I didn't have any issues with slipping or anything like that. So I got sort of lucky there. So I do have another freezer in my barn that I put skulls in because I don't shoot my animals for dispatch. So I think I finally found a buyer, but part of my issue is that freezer has essentially 2 years worth of skulls in it right at the moment. And I couldn't even, in a normal year, if it was empty going into the season, I could have probably filled half of that freezer or more full of fur instead of having it full of all those skulls. And if it comes down to it again, I'm going to throw the skulls out if I needed room to put the fur in there. So that was a little bit on me. That it was like, I should have done that last year. It's like ruining, you know, a $20 raccoon or a $10 coyote or a $70 skunk because I didn't want to throw out a $1 or $2 skull. That seems dumb at this point. So we'll be doing things a little differently there if I need it. I still have the extra freezer my brother bought me because I bought the freezer from him. So I do have 2 freezers now. I have the fridge out here, and now I should have that one cleaned out in a week or 2 here as well. So, all right, the last thing that I want to talk to you about for this video is the Goldilocks weather. I don't have any other way to explain it, but it was Goldilocks this last year. And that contributed to everything else I've been talking about, my whole All in the Line series. I mentioned it a little bit earlier that the sloughs are still wide open when I pulled my line on my 25th check. Generally, if I get 1 week of open water trapping before the sloughs freeze up, I'm lucky. Well, this year they pushed the water season back a week from what it normally is. So that would be my week of normal open water. But yeah, it was still open all the way to the end when I pulled my line. So we had very mild weather during the time I was trapping. We were getting highs up to as high as like in the mid 60s. And then the lows were like 20, but it would only be 20 degrees for like a night or 2. But it was 20 at night, but we were still getting to 45 in the daytime. Well, that isn't cooling the water off in the sloughs enough that they were going to start freezing over. So I literally did not touch a chip of ice this year when I was water trapping. And that was, again, all right up to the very end when I pulled my line. So generally in my area, and I talk about this every year, that if it goes into the night below freezing, I will not make skunk and raccoon catches, and raccoons in particular. Well, this year, every day it was, you know, 40 degrees or more during the day. So going into the night, it was still, you know, 40-ish degrees when it got dark. Well, that just led to me making, so I think that 100% led to me making more raccoon catches and more skunk catches and more muskrat catches. Then also kind of on the flip side of that, we were getting like the 20-degree nights and stuff like that. Well, as you guys watch my videos, you notice I talk about the weather at the beginning of every video, and I do that so you guys can maybe catch up on some of the trends that happen. On those nights when I had the coldest nights, well, those are some of the nights that I was picking up 2, 3, 4 canines in a day. I'm going to say canines because both coyotes and fox, you know, I'll pick up more canines on those colder days. So I had cold nights, so I was picking up the canines, but I had warm going into the night, so I was still picking up the raccoons and skunks. And then, like I said, I think the muskrats, I think when it gets 20 degrees, I don't think they like swimming around, but when it's 40 going into the night, I'm thinking I make a decent amount of my muskrat catches within the first few hours after dark. And then as it cools off, then I think the muskrat activity slows down. Because some of those nights that were a little bit colder, I actually had less muskrat catches. So, and that's kind of a year over year thing that I noticed. So we just, like I said, I hit the Goldilocks weather. I had, I think 3 or 4 days it actually rained a little bit during the day, or rained sometime overnight or during the day while I was running my line. But I think the most we got was like 3/10 of an inch, which essentially all it did is just kind of got the dust laid down on the roads. You know, if you watch my videos, you can see some of the catch circles were dry, even though the ground around it was muddy, because the animal was stirring up the dirt enough that 3/10 of an inch of rain didn't even affect the animal, which kind of helped keep my animals clean. I did have plenty of mud balls as well, but it helps keep it a little bit clean if you don't get the rain. But I guess my point is there, the rain didn't really affect my line. And if anything, I feel like if anything, what that means is, like, if it rains overnight, the animals are going to try and move before it actually rains. And if it quits raining, so it rains a little while and quits raining, then I think you even get more movement yet after the rain, especially if it quits before sunrise. So those little rain showers overnight, if anything, I feel like helped my catch rate more than it hurt anything. Had we gotten like a full deluge, day-long rain event, then yes, I think that would have hurt my catch rate, but that did not happen. So like I said, we ended up with the Goldilocks weather this year. So that, I think it just led to my final comments here is just, I flat out had the best season I've ever had, maybe the best season I ever will have. And it hurts a little to think about that, but like, I mean, realistically, things could happen, and, you know, I may not be trapping 10 years from now, you know, but man, looking back at it, that's all I could say is just, you know, I'm trying to soak in everything. When I had all my fur on my barn, I'm a somewhat sentimental guy. I sat on the tailgate of my pickup for maybe a half an hour after I got it all hanging there before I started taking it down, and I took some pictures, you know, for my barn picture video. I literally sat there and just kind of reminisced about everything that was up there, and, you know, like just the sheer volume of everything that there. So it's like you kind of glaze over it in the day you're making all the catches, but when you get everything displayed like I had them displayed, and I'm not going to lie to you, the video and the pictures I post just do not do that justice to how big that is. So generally, I mean, I had them 3 layers high, so I'm 20 feet high on my barn, and I bet I was 45 feet wide of solid fur hanging on there this year. So I had to move nails. I mean, I spent days of pre-planning trying to figure out exactly how I was going to hang everything up there in order to be able to make it all fit up there. So yeah, I think I'll just leave you guys with that. Yeah, my thought on the season is it was just the best season I've ever had. It might be the best I ever will. So let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope this upcoming fall I have just as many catches for you, but we'll see. So I think that's all I got for this video. Again, stay tuned for next week's video. We're gonna go through animal by animal, kind of any species specific lessons I learned. There's probably more lessons or more detailed lessons in that part of the video than there is in this one. But yeah, so stay tuned next week for that. And then for the rest of the summer and the fall, stay tuned. Like every other week, I'll have kind of a how-to or, you know, that type of educational type of videos coming out until probably around New Year's again, when my Out on the Line series will start up again. So with that, thanks for watching Schmattz Outdoors. We'll see you guys on the next one.